What could possibly go wrong if someone took an inescapable island inhabited by evil spirits and sent all the most dangerous criminals there? You'd get a combination of gangsters and ghosts cooperating under one roof. This is what happened on the Alcatraz Island throughout the 20th century. Before we enter one of the most haunted areas in the world, you'd better click that subscribe button so we're in this together. Things are about to get spooky. 1.25 miles offshore from San Francisco, California, surrounded by hazardous currents, there lies a 22-acre-sized island. Alcatraz is best known for the prison which was built on this island. But before that, it was inhabited by the Olwan, the Native American people of this area. They too used this island as a prison. They believed that evil spirits resided there, therefore deporting criminals into the isolation of a rocky, cursed island surrounded by cold and deep waters seemed like a reasonable punishment. But it was not only the Native Americans who believed this place to be haunted. The famous writer Mark Twain, after visiting the island once, described the island as cold as winter, even in the summer months. But a reputation like this did not deter the Americans from taking the island over in 1861 and turning it into the Alcatraz Citadel, a military defense base and a prison. Its isolation from the outside world made it the perfect place to house prisoners from the Civil War. The inmates worked on modernizing the prison, which eventually resulted in it becoming the famous Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, also known as The Rock. No, not this one. The Rock operated from 1934 to 1963. At that time, it was the most expensive federal prison in the USA. But it served its purpose, to isolate the most dangerous people from society. The thing was, a new type of criminal was running amok in the streets of the USA: the gangsters. The Rock was believed to be the world's most escape-proof prison, making it the perfect spot for the most wicked of all criminals. Among them were such names as Alvin Creepy Karpis, the kidnapping, bank robbing, people-killing gangster, who landed in Alcatraz for kidnapping a friend of Franklin D. Roosevelt and asking for $200,000 in ransom. George Machine Gun Kelly, a real-life Bonnie and Clyde character, a gangster who went on crime sprees with his wife. She even got him a Thompson submachine gun as a present, which earned his nickname. And even the Scarface, Al Capone. Always feared and respected, here he was decrowned and had no privileges. He was simply reduced from public enemy number 1 to Alcatraz inmate number 85. So how was life there, on the Rock, where even the ultimate mob boss was reduced in status to nothing more than a regular convict? The vigorous conditions of this prison consisted of more than just a very strict daily routine. Waking up at 6:20 a.m. and going into mandatory labor until 4:50 p.m. was daily practice. After that, they were locked back up again in their cells, which were 5 feet deep and 9 feet wide in size. You could easily touch both walls at the same time in a cell of this size. Reading of books and magazines was forbidden, and during the break hours, prisoners were not allowed to smoke and gather in groups. In fact, not only were they not allowed to gather in groups, they were forbidden to talk. It was in the early years when James Johnson, the first warden of the Alcatraz prison, implemented his rigorous ways of dealing with the prisoners. The policy of silence. Prisoners were not allowed to talk to each other, except during short breaks. Muttering a word when it was not allowed resulted in a trip to the isolation cell. The perpetual silence had an impact on many inmates' health. A convict named Ruth Percival is reported to have started grinning maniacally as he took an axe and cut his 4 fingers off. Then he turned to another prisoner and asked him to cut the fingers off his remaining arm. But eventually, prisoners found their way of outplaying the policy of silence. There were over 300 inmates in the prison and only 6 isolation cells. So the prisoners started talking. They outnumbered the available isolation chambers, so eventually this resulted in the relaxing of the scandalous policy. Yet Alcatraz was a place for the most hardcore troublemakers. Even with the policy of silence revoked, it still was a prison. And this is why there were many attempts to escape the escape-proof prison. Clarence the Choctaw Kid Carnes was just freshly imprisoned when he, with the help of 6 other inmates, started implementing his plan. They captured the guards and took their guns. This started a revolution which is known today as the Battle of Alcatraz. During this 2-day event, 3 prisoners and 2 guards were killed. The rebels had to surrender. Clarence's accomplices were sentenced to death, while Clarence himself was sentenced to an additional 99 years in prison, which brought his total sentence to 203 years. He was 19 years old. But there were some who achieved the impossible. Frank Lee Morris and 2 brothers, John and Clarence Anglin, using tools made from metal spoons, chiseled through the concrete walls of the prison and escaped through a vent in the roof, where they blew up an inflatable raft made from over 50 stolen raincoats. Their absence in the cell was not noticed because the escapees had placed handmade papier-mâché dummy heads with real human hair stolen from the prison's barbershop to make it look like they were asleep. The escape plan was executed perfectly, but it is not known whether they managed to reach the coast. It is believed that they must have drowned on their way to the coast, but their bodies were never discovered. Clint Eastwood decided to make a film about the escape, which illustrates how truly extraordinary this event was. The Alcatraz prison operated for 29 years. It was a zone of turmoil, brutality, and tension. During these years, a total of 36 prisoners made 14 escape attempts, of which 23 were caught, 6 were shot dead, 2 drowned, and 5 were listed as missing and presumed drowned. Apart from deadly clashes with the guards, 8 were murdered by inmates and 5 committed suicide. Taking into account the fact that Alcatraz Island already had a reputation of an island with sinister spirits present, even before the prison was built, these events added a lot to the aura of the place. All kinds of paranormal sights were reported by the prisoners, guards, and visitors of the prison. Everything from cries, whispers, and slamming doors heard at night, to ominous silhouettes in corridors, and female voices in a male-only prison were reported. The prison was closed back in 1963, but it seems that the evil has refused to leave. This resulted in Alcatraz being often reported as the most haunted prison in the USA. Many visitors claim to have managed to capture the ghosts of Alcatraz on camera, as pictures like these appear to show. Apparently, even though the mob is no longer behind bars, the mob of the dead is walking freely in the corridors. The prison consisted of 4 blocks, the A, B, C, and D blocks. The D block is the most notorious for its ghoulish ambiance and the number of paranormal sightings that occurred there. This is where the isolation cells are located, which were known as the Hole. Inmates were sent there as a punishment, to spend days or even weeks in total silence and darkness. Naturally, these kinds of surroundings could drive people mad. But one of the cells was the most infamous, D14. Here is one of the reasons why. Allegedly, one night, a screeching cry for help was heard. Someone was shouting hysterically. Apparently, a prisoner who was held there started seeing red eyes glowing in complete darkness. This terrified him, and he began screaming for hours and hours. He was found in the morning, dead, with bizarre strangle marks on his neck. D14 was an isolation cell, and he was alone. Alcatraz Prison ceased its activity in 1963 because it was too expensive to run. But today, despite the reputation of being the epicenter of cryptic activities, it attracts many. tourists which flock here in large numbers, around 1.5 million per year. Yet, with the place being more vibrant than ever, the atmosphere remains chilling. Would you dare to go and spend a night there? We hope that you enjoyed this tour through one of the most haunted places on Earth. If you would like to see more stories like this one, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time.